It is 7:03. I am going to open the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. It is also offered on Zoom. Any votes we take, although there won't be tonight, will have to be a roll call. Actually, meeting minutes. Is that a roll call? Meeting minutes. We're all here. Max is on.
Anyway, they're all supposed to be a roll call.
Okay, gotcha. I think what we're going to do, and I talked to Deb, the only business is the MBTA, but we do have meeting minutes we could approve. So if we want to do that.
Yeah, if you read them, if you didn't, we'll do them at the next meeting.
I didn't, but
you know what? I didn't really read them. I skimmed through them. So why don't we just
Why
put
don't
them?
you just wait?
Yeah, we'll wait. I'm sorry, Deb.
that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I don't want to force something in over the top.
As long as my minutes are done by me, I wait a month.
Awesome, thank you.
No, I was there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have a lot of people here. We have, it looks like, a number of people online. So I'll just try to lay out the ground rules. I'm going to start with some asking the members of the board for comments. Also, just remind everyone that is unaware, we had a joint meeting yesterday with the select board. At that time, the select board took up the recommendation to submit an action plan, or for the town administrator to submit and sign off on an action plan. So that would put us in compliance with the February deadline that they've established, whereby towns need to submit or resubmit a action plan. I believe the action plan that Danielle is going to submit is the same parcels, right? At least for now, right?
It's the same action plan that was approved 2 years ago.
Years ago.
It'll be submitted by the town administrator.
Okay. So that is what will happen. And then just for the purposes of letting the public know, what roughly is the time frame for submitting that?
It has to be submitted by February 13th.
But I mean, is there a plan to do it just right then on the 13th, or like, is it all ready to go?
It's ready, it's done. It just needs to be submitted.
Okay. All right. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. If anyone is asking when it's going to happen, that's very sufficient answer. So again, we'll start with some comments from the members here. And then after that point, I think I'll start in the room here for anyone that wants to speak. And for anyone that wants to speak, if you could please just say your name and your address, and please say it very clearly so that Debbie can record that. And again, and put your questions through me, the chair. Now, I'm the chair. I'm the one that likes abuse. I don't get enough of it at work at home, so I just wanted more of it. So that's why I'm chair. Anyways, with that, I will open it up, Mr. Pierce.
Okay, thank you. So looking this whole thing over, I think the answer to the situation is something we need to work together to come up with a solution, because just a flat no isn't going to work. Because ultimately, we will get sued, and we will end up spending a lot of money on attorneys' fees. Very similar to what's happened on Elm Street. It got to be very expensive, and they eventually save money. So, rather than do that, I'd rather put some time into looking at what it is we're doing and looking at ways to make it palatable for all the people involved. We can do that by making a few changes that might work. Now, one of the things that I think everybody agrees is there's a lot of misinformation that got put out there, a lot of different pieces of information that when we spoke to town council about them and provided town council with questions on those, they said, no, those things aren't true. So, but yet that misinformation factored into the vote that was taken, because there was no attempt, no ability to challenge it. There was no, as far as I know, there are no documents from any of these other lawyers or anything that specifically address what the problem is. So we have something to work with. Okay, if this is the main problem, this is what we need to work with. We've never gotten anything, and yet town council is religiously provided us with backup. Any questions we asked them, they gave us answers, they gave us support throughout the whole thing. So we never got any of that from any other place. So everybody knows what the position of town council and us was, but nobody knows exactly what the other side really wants, or what is true about the other side. So there is a couple of questions that I would have. I mean, Danielle, if we have, from what I understand, that how many acres is Edgewood?
Edgewood by itself,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how many were usable. It's about a little less than half of the total 79. I can find out.
It's about 49
It's
acres.
47.78 acres.
Okay.
And of that, there's a smaller amount that was usable after the eliminated, but yes, that's okay.
What do we require for total acreage?
50 total.
Yeah, you see around,
Total,
yeah.
okay.
So we're allowed to do it in one large parcel and then 5 acre pieces as well. So if we had another location that we could come up with okay, so the second part of the question is, we came up with a 10 acre parcel and added to the 47 acre parcel. Can we do that?
So we don't get credit for all 47 acres. I can tell you how much we get credit for. It's from the compliance model. Because flood zone and otherwise undeveloped area has to be eliminated. So that, let's see, flood zone. That's only flood zone. That's right.
Mhm.
Well, actually, while you look that up, if realizing that, that a lot of people were especially, were afraid that this would affect their properties or affect their ability to do something or make their property less valuable or damage it. I think that if we could have those concerns in writing and show that those don't apply, we might have a possibility of proving that using this piece of property, while it helps the town, it doesn't hurt the location either.
It's in square feet, not acres. So let me just quickly.
In square feet.
Yeah. Why is this a million square?
So, you know, if one of these attorneys or any of the people that told these people all these things, and we could get hold of that information and show that it's not true, I don't know how big of a decision change that would make. But having this information like this has always been a part of these 40Bs and any of these state things that we've had to deal with in the past over the years. They always come in with oh my God, you know, if you put this 40B in, my house is going to be worth nothing. It's going to be underwater and on and on and on. Once the smoke clears and the truth comes out, and none of those things are going to happen, things will go along smoothly again. So whether or not all of these things that they scared all these people that I was landing with, if they're not true, I mean, then we should find that out and let them know that there isn't any threat to their existence or to their or any threat to the situation that exists. And the state cannot come in and take away those rights that you have. Can't take away your contracts. Can't take away the things that you decide. They do not have the ability to do that. So that means that those things are all safe. That you're not in any situation. The only other situation that exists there would be the density could increase. Well, we realize that, and so we put that caveat in that saying that we would limit it to the 900 and that's it. So that way you wouldn't be, that takes away the last threat to your site. So, but I want that to be in writing. I need it writing. I need to fact check it. I need to let you know that you're not in trouble, that there's not a problem here. And I don't have that. Everything from the town side is in writing, questions answered anytime. You can read every single bit of it at any given point. So my thought, of course, was that depending on how many acres we actually had at Edgewood, could we do a couple of 5 acre parcels and manage to make up the difference to leave the Marks Landing out of it, although it is not the best scenario. The scenario that we put together is the best scenario.
So I did have the calculation. So 24 of the acres are usable, though I think
How much?
24 are usable. However, I think we actually could get credit for 47 acres, but the 24 acres is used in the density calculations. So because we haven't figured it out that way, I don't know yet what that would look like, but potentially we could have a 47 acre parcel at Edgewood, another parcel elsewhere, and if we could make the density work, that could potentially be.
So that's, see, this is, now we're getting someplace. Now we have we're starting to go down a path. So if you could make a note to try to work that out so that at the next meeting we have that information so we can actually put together some kind of a plan to perhaps alleviate their concerns. But I would also like the opportunity to allay their fears to let them know that we were never going to allow something to happen. You know, you guys are members of our town, just like every other person. We were never going to let something like that happen to you, okay? So that's basically what I have in mind. I want to work on that. So my requests are, give me something in writing that tells me what it is that scared all the people over there so we can fact check it and see if it's really true or if it's just scare tactic. Second, we'll figure out what we got, the usable space, and we'll see if we can add some space from one other location. We can probably find a smaller location.
It has to be 5 acres.
Yeah, we could probably find a 5 acre piece, and that would give us the ability to leave the Martin's Landing out, although I think, again, it's not the best scenario for the town, but we could do it if it allayed their fears. And again, we want to take care of everybody. This is not a one person thing. I don't want anybody to think that. So, and if we can do that, then we could perhaps put together a plan that would solve everybody's problem. Any questions?
Some questions really public yet.
Okay.
But it's okay.
Yeah, you have to ask again.
It's fine. Yeah. Appreciate it, Warren. Very thoughtful, and I'll go to you.
Just briefly, I mean, I'm kind of intrigued with what you just brought up. I'd be curious to hear the answers as to how that would work out. That being said, I'm still coming down at this point pending and some of those answers that the questions you just brought up that, you know, it was overwhelmingly voted down. Residents that I've spoken to so far are still not moved. They're not, to me anyways, they're saying they don't want this brought up again, mainly because some of the issues, you know, people are nervous over at Martin's Landing. So, I mean, if some of those questions could get answered, if that changes the public opinion, I mean, I'm basically going on what I hear from the residents. So if the proposal that you potentially have causes a significant change, I mean, I'd have to wait on to see what the answers are and how that people's perception change.
Yeah.
Because, you know, my vote is going to be more or less what the residents of North Reading want.
Can I do a quick response?
Yeah, absolutely.
Realizing that in the end, we will lose. Realizing that.
Yeah.
So it's not just solving the problem, it's the money that it's going to cost us to lose. And that we don't have the funds in this town to lose. And I can find much better places to put that kind of money in the school system or in some of the other DPW or roads or something else, than to give it to pay attorney's fees for something that we know we're going to use. And so, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Or do we do?
I'll wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't have that much to say tonight after, last night, just less than 24 hours, I was just across the way. And, I think we had, provided the information of where we're at right now. And I speak in part for many of the members that, we were just right hot off the heels of a no vote from the town meeting, from the town, from the residents. And so, again, we got a very quick decision, or if I should say, a quick turnaround from the SJC decision that we have a deadline to meet. I thought it was in the best interest of the town to have the select board do that, since I knew I didn't have enough votes here in the CPC to push the action plan forward. But I do agree with the action plan going forward, because I do think that buys us time. And helps us maybe come to a resolution. And some of the things even Warren said, like answer some of these questions for people that these legal questions that are causing people to feel threatened, if you will, that and that's why there are no votes. So with getting those questions answered, would that change? I'm not sure, but that's what at least what we're going to try to do. I do hear a lot of the predominant ones, so I think we can come up with that short list. And you and I have talked about it before. The age restriction thing, I think, is a big one. And I hear arguments for both sides of it. And I do find, like, sometimes in law, there's a yeah, you can do that, but what are the chances of that ever happening? And so it's technically a yes. But if you hang your hat on that, you have a right to, but then you have to be practical about things. Is it really something that's going to happen? The other thing too is we have to have everybody look at the parcels themselves, and what really is, and what we're allowed to do in Massachusetts, and really in many states, is really do long-term zoning. And that's kind of what this falls under, because it's not necessarily something that's going to be enacted immediately. There's a completely developed parcel of property at Pulte, and the same really for Edgewater. Is Edgewood a little older? Yeah. And there has a potential, but it's still considered really a long-term zoning change. So, and you're allowed to do that. And you're allowed to do that under this law. And you're allowed to do that if there was, has nothing to do with that. Towns do it all the time to just set up parcels for overlays or whatever, so that in the future, when they start to roll over, this is possible. And I think that's, at least our parcels. If you look at other towns, some of them are like, there's no building requirement in this, but they're just vacant parcels that, beg for development. Yeah. So we're in a very different situation. And I think that context matters. So we get the legal thing, we have, the parcels themselves to put that in context. And then there's people that have seemed to really draw the line and pick sides here. And, they're on the principal side, they're on the cost avoidance side, pick where you are, not wanting to also, that's cost avoidance, say illegal. There's also the cost avoidance is in losing grants, because that's a cost, because we have to pick up the tab. So I understand all those, and I want everyone to know I have an open mind. I want to hear both sides of the argument in the next few months. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, you have to also remember if you remember, I brought the letter that the state sent to Milton prior to beating them in court in the whole 9 yards. Told them, if you don't comply, that here are our remedies, right down to we'll assign somebody from the state to your town to make sure to do it. And the danger of that is they're not going to pick these two locations. They're not going to pick Martin's Landing, and they're not going to pick Edgewood, because what they really want is a wide open piece of land that they can build on. So the damage to the town could be excessive if they actually went that far. Which is one of the reasons that I think that this what Danielle put together is, it's really the best of all worlds, as long as it doesn't hurt Martin's Landing. And if we can prove that it doesn't, maybe there's a chance that if people understand it's not somebody being hurt there, and that the danger really is in waiting too long, and letting this thing blow up.
Right.
So,
And I'll just end with, we do have to be aware that North Reading is not an outlier. So for the people that are, why haven't these people, this group of no votes, what's their problem or whatever? There's a lot of company with the no votes, there's a lot of towns. The state is being very sly with publishing on their website who actually really voted. Good luck trying to find that. I've tried to find that exact where it's at, and they make it very difficult to see where everyone's in. From our counts, from other towns, and because the towns all communicate, it's well over the 30s. And then there's a bunch of towns that haven't complied at all. They haven't submitted anything. And so there's a fairly large group. So what that number is, I don't even know, but I know it's plus 30 out of the 177. So we're not alone. So when we talk about like what the punitive things that the state's going to do, they are in a pickle, and they know they wrote, or a bad law was written in the way it was written. I'm not saying on its merits, that's a personal thing, your belief, but I think most even attorneys, I think John Eggman even said this is really poorly done, with these different grants thrown in there, like they're the punitive aspect of the law. And then they've changed it 5 times, as the SJC said, just without any comment periods or anything. They just keep changing the guidelines. So there's been a lot of things the state hasn't done. So for the people that are that look at the no people and say, what is wrong with you? There are a lot of things wrong with this law. And I wish those people would just give a little bit of grace to the people for whatever the reasons are. No, they're not alone. There's hundreds of thousands of people in those towns that represent these towns that are also no's, and they have their own reasons. But I do understand all the reasons for yes too. And I want everyone to know that. I do understand that. As well, and we're just trying to get to the right decision here. So I think
as you mentioned yesterday, when our state rep and our state senator went in and said, "Listen, can we work with this?" They just said, "No, you're out of here."
I know.
Well, like, whoa.
And the other thing I'll say again, trying to be just fair, looking at both sides. I mean, one of the beautiful things about North Reading is it's just, and it might be a consternation to many, but we have a divided kind of group here. We have a divided CPC kind of on our opinions. We have divided select board. And I think that's a healthy thing because one checks the other. There's always going to be a majority here and there, and that always is shown in the history of North Reading to flip back and forth all the time. But it's healthy, and I would just submit that, as an independent voter myself, registered my whole life independent, like I don't think Massachusetts being 100% practically one party is actually healthy. I think opposition's good because it keeps everybody honest. It makes sure you don't have laws like this that are improperly done. I think, and another example is the most recent, the Affordable Homes Act that was signed into law in August, the ADU one. Again, if there was opposition, I think there would have been a more measured introduction or approach of the ADUs. Instead, it's just boom. And it's gonna be a lot for the building departments and everyone to deal with. So that's what
I think they put it on the back of this. I think they put it on the back of this MBTA thing because everybody's focused on that.
Yeah,
they won't even know.
But again, that's what the back and forth gets you sometimes is more perfection than if it's just rammed through by one party or the other party. And just that's all I'm saying. So again, just trying to be fair that it's some good things about what we do in North Reading versus the state level, really, I think, and maybe that's healthy. So we're here to hear people's opinion, no matter what it is, what side you're on. So I'm going to just open up to the floor here because the people are here in the room, and then we'll do the same online. So if you folks online can just be patient and we'll start here. So is there anybody in the room? Sure, just say your name and your address.
Is this from here?
Yeah, will it pick it up though, Danielle? I just went, is it okay if you stand up just so it gets to the mic? It is more for the.
This doesn't connect it to.
Oh, it doesn't?
This one? No, it just makes us all more audible.
Okay.
Because NORCAM's not here. But you're welcome to use mine.
Just a quick side note, Charlie Baker was a Republican, he signed this bill.
Yeah,
We know.
Yeah,
So-
no.
So, and it was part of, it was part of a much larger bill.
Oh,
Maybe not.
I'm sorry.
No, no problem.
I apologize.
It's okay.
It's Jim Gannon, I live at 9 Dwayne Drive. I didn't realize you were here.
I know. In the hood.
Wow. That was, Ms. Pierce, we've never met, that was really easy. And that's actually my question, what, before again, I don't think what is here, what would it take? That's my question, what would it take for you to support the law? Because no city, no town has said the law is not legal. It said the way it was, as you said, the way it was applied.
Implemented, whatever, yeah.
Was, but the law itself, no one has better than legal. So I'm just curious, so you may not like the law, I'm not sure I do either, but
I'm not sure I do.
but it's legal.
Right.
There's no question about that. No one's questioned. I kept hearing the town. So back and looked. The night this got voted down, there were 477 people in the room. That's 15%, 15.26% of the voters in this town. That's a lot of voters who weren't there. And to quite honestly, probably don't care. Or if they do care, they just didn't want to, come in. 208 were from precinct 3. 3 were from Edgewood. 137 were from Marks Landing. I don't know what got said to folks from Marks Landing about what was going to happen to
I have a
them.
question.
Sure.
How do you know that?
The same way that Jeff Buell got the information
I'm
about,
curious.
I asked Sue Duplin for it.
So, okay, she did an information
When you
request.
check, yes, when you check
Okay.
into the room, they tell you,
I'm just curious. Yeah, good.
so there was 138, I'm sorry, there was 138. So it's a very small percentage. So when you say the town voted, the people in the room voted that night.
But Jim,
The
I
town-
just wanted in fairness. because-
Everybody had a chance to show up, I couldn't agree. with
Right,
you.
and also, when we say the town, what we mean is that's how we vote in the town is town meeting. So when the town meeting votes that way, it's the correct manner of speaking. And I only want to say that if this decision was something that you agreed with, and you said, hey, the town voted, I could do the same thing. But I accept what you're saying as far as the numbers. It's kind of sad in a way that we only get that kind of participation.
It is.
But I just want to say, like, I'm using the term because that is the correct term. Like, that's how the town voted.
The overwhelming majority of the 477 people in the room voted for it. The overwhelming majority of this town did not vote for it. They didn't vote for anything.
Right, and that's like every town meeting, though. I just want to be clear. For every budget thing, when we vote our $80 million budget, a tiny little group of people vote for that budget. The rest of the town sitting at home watching Netflix,
I agree.
That's just the reality, or working, God bless you if you're working,
And you can come here and tell you.
Yeah, no, and I should shut up. You're here to comment. I just
So
wanted to
I guess my
clarify.
question is, what would it take? The last time, this last meeting, I asked the question, there were 2 amendments that didn't get made. They didn't get made when we had the town meeting. So the people in the room, I don't know if they knew or not that those potential amendments were on the table. Basically, saying, we're done, we're not building anymore, we're done, we've satisfied it, we're not building another apartment. That did not get brought up, and I don't know why it didn't get brought up. And we talked about it last week about, is that something that can now be worked in? And I believe, based on what Mr. Pierce just said, that we have a chance to build something that will build some consensus and basically make it palatable to the folks who weren't in agreement with it. And I don't give a rat's patootie about winning and losing. I live in North Reading for 29 years. I hope everybody is happy here. So I'm not, this isn't a football game, and I don't want to win it just to win it. What I don't want to do, and I watched Brad Jones and Senator Tarr sit there and say, there's a snowball's chance in hell in the next 2 to 3 years that this legislature is going to do anything different. They want to see how it works. So I don't see anything coming. And if the Attorney General doesn't sue us, that was shocking. So that is my
So can
question.
I answer that one? Just because there's two parts to that. So the two amendments, I think, that were discussed on the floor, they weren't ever brought, I believe. One was, and Danielle can help me here, but one was to limit the number of units.
Get the 900.
Yeah, and so, and then what you had said, so the other one, you just mentioned warrants, that's a different thing, but that means
No,
like change.
when Steve O'Leary was here last night, he said,
Oh, okay, when you pointed, I thought you talked.
No, last night.
Yeah, last night.
those two
you said.
were mentioned before we went to the town meeting.
Right, I just wanted to cover
I
that.
told people in the room, oh, they're gonna bring up some amendments tonight, and it didn't happen, and I.
Well, there's a couple things. So first, I didn't know, and this, it's when you, that's what happens when you wait all the way. This was the third town meeting where we had the MBTA 3A up. So he waited till the last minute to bring this up. It might have been smarter to bring them up a little earlier and offer them, because what I think, I took it is, I don't know, everything you kind of changed to what the, our action plan is, our plan, it's subject to acceptance by the Attorney General in the state. So when you kind of alter it last minute there, that's where I was wondering. It was just myself, like, and Danielle can maybe speak to it. I mean, does changing, limiting or capping the units where you're able to do that?
So the compliance model offers an option to do it. We never really pursued that because we didn't, I don't know, we just never pursued putting it into the action plan. I think because the action plan was submitted so early. And at that time, there was pretty wide support from the previous makeup of both boards.
Right.
As far as the other amendment that had to do with expressly allowing age-restricted housing, that was something we kind of thought to ask town council, is that possible? Because no, it didn't occur to anyone early on in the planning process that Martin's Landing could perceive that to be a threat to their 55 plus. It wasn't considered because it just wasn't part of the zoning, so we didn't consider that to be a problem. Later on, when we realized how concerned people were, that was something we kind of thought of to, as a possibility, but it was later in the process. And at that point, I think both boards had made their positions pretty clear on where they were going with support, and amendments didn't really get discussed at town meeting.
I'll slightly disagree with you. The meeting just prior to that, the group meeting in this room before we went, I know it was only a week or so before, that they both came up and I left the room because no one said, hell no, we're not going to do that. I left the room thinking that's exactly what was going to happen, but it didn't. It just didn't. So I don't speculate. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so I'll stop speculating. But when we left the room, I was pretty sure that's what was going to happen, and maybe it would have swayed some folks not to scream hell no, but that didn't. I also have one more to consider. What about a tax break? Can the people within that zone be allowed a tax break?
If I could give them one, sure. I don't really know how that
Is
works.
there anything in town laws going for it?
I'm
I'm gonna throw that off here and I'm gonna stop.
I don't know.
There, if I may, Dave,
Sure.
there
Sorry.
are, there are things, if you're disabled, the town does have some tax breaks for elderly and disabled. And also, if you come and work at the town, you can earn money towards your tax bill. But they don't have anything that's just strictly an age-related benefit to anybody. Or even, actually, as a, there's not even there's not even a veteran benefit unless you're disabled.
I'll admit it, I threw it out there. I think the big question or timing. We go to vote in May. I'll go back to something that Daniel just said, the former makeup of this group. If there is a staunch hell no, then the only way we're going to change that is to move in a different direction for this committee and also for select board. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. We would have to find people, or the town would have to find people who feel differently and then vote them in. Personally, I prefer not to get into that kind
Well,
of thing.
that is how it works, and, I mean, everyone can run if they want to run, and then people vote for who they want to.
Agreed.
I mean, that's how we've been doing it, that, but, I don't know, you're right, like, if you don't like the results you're getting, it definitely would motivate more people come this April, for the elections, but. Go ahead.
I would, I look a little different on that, and that is that I wouldn't change the people in order to get a vote that hurt Arms Landing. Just that would not be the way to do it. My approach to it, as I let you know, is let me find out what's really wrong, what really scares them, and find out if it's real. Is there a monster under the bed or not? If it's not, and they know that, and they hear that, and are guaranteed that, so that they look at this as something to do with the town, then you got a much better chance of getting the vote that you're looking for.
I have the videotape. I have the videotape of the Republican Party's lawyers and talking and so on and so forth.
That'd be fun.
I know some folks were in the room.
And everyone was invited to that, but.
Oh, I understand.
Just
I
saying.
remember at the last minute, they started telling us they only wanted one person or something from each.
Well, that was coming more from the town for quorum, that we got all threatened that if we go together, I mean, that was not our doing or anyone else's, but the town.
Point is, if you want to see what was said,
Well, actually,
Jim posted it on the internet.
Yeah, there's
so
actually,
it's out there.
written too, like, so to Warren's point, I think what you're getting at too, Jim, is that the points by these attorneys is in written form. They do cite some case law and things like that. And I think, well, not all of it, I think all of it, some people were past it, because we got stuff from KP Law, but there are those hanging ones, again, back to the age restriction one, which even speaks to this amendment and everything like that. People are trying to figure out if that is the main thing. But I think what you just said is really brilliant. I mean, it isn't about changing the makeup of the boards. It's really about trying to solve the problem. And the problem is we have a large group, the largest parcel, a subject parcel here has a group of owners that are under the impression, and for, actual, it does, that's to be discovered, but they're under the pressure that
this would damage them.
this is, yeah.
And I don't think it will, but that's why.
But you're at least seeking the proof of it.
Yeah,
It's your opinion. You don't
If I find
think
out
it will.
that in fact-
It's some of theirs it will, but I agree with you. We need to get to the bottom of it.
And if I find out that it will damage them, then I would be on your
Yeah,
side.
but I just, as I warned in
That's
my
just how it
statement
is.
too, in all law, there's always that thing where it still comes down to a decision they'll have to make, because there's that, no, technically that can't happen, or technically it could happen, but it's very unlikely, and the vice versa. So this law is never that black and white all the time. There is those gaps.
Well, I think in some cases.
So you're never gonna-
I think in some cases, like, I don't think that the state can come into Edgewood and tell this person, we're throwing you out. Because they have a rental contract. They have a legal contract that the state cannot negate. Yet the state can't go and throw that person out of Edgewood. Just like they can't negate any of the contracts that Martin's Landing has. And I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, if they did that, oh my God, the suit would, you could get anybody to win that suit against the state. But they can't do that. And I think that the people from Martin's Landing were under the impression that the state could do that. And they can't.
So Warren, Mr. Chair, if I could, yeah. So Warren, I think that it's really the state asking us to change the zoning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not so much, I don't believe that they're worried that the state's going to come in and police it and kick people out, stuff like that. I think what they're afraid of is developers coming in to the property and realigning and moving things and overlays. And that's where you lose the original language. So if Martin's Landing, say the building that isn't built yet, hypothetically, I have notes. I actually asked Attorney Eichmann, I said, can you answer these questions with certainty? And he said, no, I can't. And because this came up and it was one of them, actually, I might even ask him twice. And he couldn't answer like the 55 plus, and he couldn't answer the overlay. He could not with 100% certainty answer yes. So,
And one of the, if I may, Jeff, one of the reasons is you need every single member of Martin Landing to vote for it.
no, but if from a legal standpoint, if it was from a legal standpoint, if the people of Martin's Landing with the overlays and the 55 plus, if hypothetically, the question was, Mr. Eichmann, if someone were to buy one of those condos that's a 2-bedroom condo, and in theory, it could be turned into a 3-bedroom condo.
Mhm.
Is that possible?
Probably not, because the condo docs don't allow it. And those are contracts that the state can't break.
So the problem is the overlays are occurring and they're happening. That's not here.
Yeah,
In other areas like in Cambridge and Somerville, places that,
well, perhaps.
so a developer will come in and they buy a property and then they alter the property with the minimum guidelines of the new law, the 3A law. It's not the state per se that they're afraid of.
Yeah.
It's the development through the state's law that they're afraid of.
Okay, well, I don't know I don't know what the story is in those towns.
Well, that's what's happening. In those meetings that Jim was talking about, that's all.
One at a time.
If the rental contracts that they had were not ironclad, then that can happen. But I don't think that's the case. Martin's Land, everything's too new here and things are really done tight.
So-
Pulte Homes does a really good job of making sure everything is locked up tight. I sat through all those hearings with them and they built that. And believe me, they don't leave any stone unturned.
If I own the property, Warren, honestly, if I own the property there and I couldn't get an absolute out of an attorney that's fighting it seemed his opinion was favorable with the state. Everything he said was in favor of the state. He never mentioned like, oh, well, the people, like I represent the town, but what about the people? Like he never said, well, my opinion, the people. Everything he referred to was like bowing to the state, making all his decisions and all his opinions upon that. And maybe that's his job. I don't know. But we as a community hire these attorneys.
Yeah, we're going into all that stuff.
Okay, no, I just want to tell them that those questions are the questions I'm writing down.
Yeah,
Those
and
are the
that's,
questions I want solutions to.
and that's fair. We should bring up that one too.
Because,
But I think Jeff's also making my point, again, for both sides, is there's always gray areas in law like that where even KP Law, John Eichmann says, yeah, technically, he has to throw his hands up. Yeah, and it's like technically, but it's like whether it happens, it's like, can a cop pull you over doing 56? Yeah, technically, but does it really ever happen? Usually not, so.
28.
So, yeah, 28 maybe.
And there's no agreement between this town and Pulte about what they can and cannot do.
There's no agreement?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
When they bought the land.
there's restrictions in the site plan, but those are limited, to basic.
So they have control, their zoning is by right, it's
Yeah.
multifamily housing by right, and it's, they chose to be age restricted. There was not even a development agreement with the town where we made them, agree to remain age restricted forever. There's nothing.
Right.
That was their business model. They purchased property, said that's what they were going to do, and that's it. If they ever decided, if the residents of Martin's Landing ever decide they want to eliminate that or do something different on that property, they can.
That would be
No-
their call.
But that's different than what Jeff just said.
Well, I think
If
with
the
that,
residents decide.
That's right.
yeah, and I think, but Jim, I've heard both, and I'm just trying to be fair. There is some truth to the state makes that's a 3A, like we have to do it, by the way. So we make it a 3A, area overlay. Then all the things that come with 3A fall into it. So again, unlimited, you can't restrict bedrooms, you can't restrict all this stuff. And that's where it gets muddy. And that's where you get this people going back and forth. So let's all agree, we got to get these answers. And I do think it's a succinct list. It's not a big, broad list. It started broad and everyone's just shooting questions everywhere. But I think we whittled it down when we started to really look into this from January last year. And now I think it's down to a very small grouping of
Yeah, I think tonight
issues.
focusing on, if we could focus on making the list, not arguing the questions, but making a list of the questions. And then we, at our next meeting or the next meeting, we have for this a workshop, and we could have,
Mr. James said he talks to folks and they've got questions. I'd actually like to know what they are.
yeah,
That they're asking them, and I'm not asking you to do that today. But, there was a question, oh crap, sorry.
we could have maybe John come to the meeting.
I'll stop.
Yeah.
No, I know. Is there, I heard last night, and I think I heard this before, there's units that haven't been built yet.
Yeah.
They haven't been sold yet either. Is there, never mind, it's too complicated a question.
Yeah, you're just thinking that maybe they could change the game because they haven't built that building yet.
That was a lot of the questions.
Highly unlikely, because their business model, also because the business model and the way presented to all the current owners of all the other units, if they change, I think they'd be in big trouble if they change the game midstream, because I think the owners, all the other owners would say, well, that's not what we agreed to, it's not what you agreed to, and I'm not sure if it's not enshrined somewhere in some of the contracts that they have.
They're one of the top 5 builders in the state. I seriously doubt they're gonna want that kind of publicity.
You got it. That's what I
You
said.
already brought it up, so I'll ask it. Was there a second choice?
No, not yet.
I'm sorry, second choice for what?
Well, you spent 2.5 years looking for the perfect spot. Was there a second choice?
No, there was a really wide agreement
This
with these
is pretty
the two
perfect.
properties early on. I think it's pretty clear to me that I still don't think that there's a ton of support for this particular plan. So I'm kind of just wondering if now the question to answer is, do we think we want to comply? And if so, do we want to look elsewhere? Which is a completely valid option.
Which again, you have as an option to put your action plan forward, and then you can change that.
Right.
So that's a good question that Danielle raises. So it's compliance first, so that you at least.
That's why I want answers to those questions.
Yeah.
What do we got? What do we got? What do we need?
So I watched the Community Connection a couple of weeks ago when $19,000 was taken away from the fire department over MBTA.
Yeah.
And it was a stupid thing to do. Of the 4 towns, I think I said this before, of the 4 towns that Brad Jones is the representative for, ours was the only one that wasn't in compliance. So ours was the only one that was going to have that $19,000 taken away. I watched people in this town go nuts about, how could they do this to us? They didn't do it. We did it to ourselves. 477 people in that room did it to this town. I'm glad it got overturned because, to be honest with you, it was a dumb thing to do in the first place. But there's going to be many more where discretionary state funding is simply not going to come our way. And it's going to be public and we're going to know about it, and they're going to want to let people know this is what we're taking away and this is why we're doing it. I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know what the amounts are. I think you heard last night, Mrs. Galvin, we can't afford that to happen. This town can't afford it to happen unless you want to steal that money from something else, whether it be fire or police or overtime for police, and that's where it's coming, or the school, that's where it's going to come from. And I just think that's a bad idea, so I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I think probably also, Jim, that if people are presented with an override, which is going to raise their taxes substantially, and they realize that some of that money is going to pay for lawyers for this, that's going to create a backlash.
I'm going to do one more thing. Personally, and I mentioned this last night, the fact that we're only one of 10 cities and towns that don't offer free tuition for kindergarten students is embarrassing, to be perfectly honest with you. To ask those 184 parents to pay $3,000 a piece is insulting to the town, but
We definitely have a different kind of tax base, not a lot of commercial, and it's just that every town's a little different, but, and I'm not second guessing school committee or what the wise, but I know our ability to generate tax, bless you, is different, and all towns are different, but we're maybe unique in that area, but wouldn't it be nice to do that? Yeah, I absolutely agree, but
it wasn't the 2.5 override, it was a two-year phase out. you phase in, I guess I should say, it's phase out. And I kind of wish it had gotten broken out. It was done separately. I don't know that people would have. I do know from speaking to two people in this town, they still have daycare needs after the kindergarten, costing $21,000 a year.
Yeah.
Per student, which is
Awful.
it's 20.
Yeah.
That's
All right, thanks, Jim. We got a lot of people maybe that want to talk, so appreciate it. Anybody else? We got 3 other people here. Yeah, go ahead and just say your name and your address. Or I guess we'll take it down. Since Debbie stepped out.
Dick Matolo, 280 Martin's Landing. I too have talked to a few different lawyers on this, and my impression is, and I know you folks have put a lot of time and effort into this, and I appreciate that, is that like conservation property, once it goes into conservation, it's gone. You can't get it back out unless you go into the legislature. So if Martin's Landing should be put into this, and people are saying, oh, well, we got condo docks. Those condo docks won't amount to anything. The Attorney General will come down, slap a suit against the condo association to eliminate them. And I'll bet my bottom dollar on that. So why would you put a 55 restricted community into this? I think you're talking about taking Edgewood and finding another parcel or two. That would be fine. But I also would suggest, in like a lot of things, if you're not sure about something, sometimes it pays to wait. Yeah, I think we got, maybe 30 towns that voted this down. We got a whole bunch of towns that haven't even taken any action at all. So the state's got a problem on their hands. If we do get into a problem where they come after us legally by waiting, hopefully we'll be smart enough as a town not to try to handle the legal ourselves with our internal lawyers here, but we'll get the very best and get all the towns together to fight this thing as a solid unit. And then I think that the state's going to have to take a second look at it. But yeah, if they can pick towns off one at a time, it's tough. It definitely would lower the value of Martin's Landing. I think there's a lot of people that would be very unhappy, and they certainly would reflect that, in the coming elections. And definitely. I mean, my recommendation is forget Martin's Landing, because it's going to complicate this, as you said here tonight. And it's what would be the downside of waiting? Yeah, because you're going to be waiting with a whole bunch of other communities.
It's really just the unknown, right? I mean, that's why it seemed pragmatic to at least put in the action plan. And the action plan admittedly has Martin's Landing in there. But that said, as you just heard, there's opportunity to look at other parcels too. That's something that we'd have to look into. But
I agree that this it looked so good in the beginning. But I'm not against waiting if it's not going to cost us anything. So learning what we're learning here, and then doing our research on we never really did. We never did this. We never said, give me a list of all the problems and let me look at them and let me see how many of them I can solve and what ones I can't solve. And the ones that I can't solve, I'll move on in a different direction to solve it. I like to say, if we've been working together for a million years, we take care of business. And so, so I'm okay with filing the way we did and buying some time. And so maybe, and as I said, we will maybe take a look around and see what we can see. She'll get me some calculations, let me know how much room I got, how much I need. and then we'll look at what else is available around there, and then perhaps we will, and again, Dave's right, we can change it, we can say, okay, listen, we changed our mind on this.
You've got 5 acres, right? You could throw in there.
If I could back my house up to your house, we have it. But,
That's how we solve this, the entire board is just.
you know, we need to have some of these conversations a year ago, okay? But we're having them now, and I think this board's committed to working on it and bringing something back to you that doesn't hurt anybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So one thing, Dick, I think you brought up a good point too. If the town really doesn't want to move forward with this, and they continue to say no, you're right, they don't stand alone. And that's a good point, because everything that we talked about is Elm Street. Well, we stood alone on Elm Street. And this would be completely different, and the scope and magnitude of it is completely different. And, you know, you can look online, there's like 31 cities and towns that did say no. So they're unhappy as well. They don't like what's going on either with the law. And there's the 60, I think there are 60 cities and towns that have not moved in any direction. They even had a meeting on it, some of them, yeah. So they're doing the same thing. They're just kind of waiting until they get the tap, you know, and then they're going to deal with it when they get the tap. And I think that fundamentally, I think that's kind of where, when the town voted, that's what they're saying. They're saying that, you know what, yeah, we're okay with that. So, you know, that was a good point. I just want to mention that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Hang on, I just want to try to get more people, Jim, if that's okay.
Hi, Nancy Wolf, 4 Sands Berlin.
Nancy.
So I agree with you that, you know, we can wait with everybody else, but that doesn't negate the cost that's going to cost the town. So while we can wait, there is a potential that we are going to bill put in front of us. And I think that's something that we need to think about. I think that looking for something different that eliminates the Martin's Landing is a wonderful idea, because clearly there's been a lot of information given to them that has caused them great concern. But I have kind of an odd question. Do you guys have a budget that's allocated by the town?
Yes, just really for our planner and.
It's mostly our salary
staff.
and office supplies, some professional.
One trip to
services.
Staples, I think, a year. That's it. It's very small.
No, I volunteer, I understand that.
We never exceed it.
Yeah, yeah.
We got a great.
We return our money back into the pool.
My second question is, if indeed the people in this town who didn't sort of understand how the whole town meeting worked were to let you know in a very professional way their opinion, would that change your opinion?
I'd say yes. It wouldn't change, but like, I'm just saying.
Would it change the way that you would think that the town feels about this?
Oh, absolutely. Like again, and it was said last night by select board, it's been said, I think by Jeff yesterday, and Jeff represents, you know, a group of people that, from where he lives and where he's close to. I represent people that everyone has their circles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely represent everybody in town, but do I hear from that circle all the time and get feedback? I'm always getting feedback from that circle. It's parents and stuff in school. And then, but in the broader group, I'm open to hearing from everybody. And so absolutely, why wouldn't I?
People wrote the letters and told you that they feel very strongly that it should be a yes, not a no. That would change.
I think even just what you're doing though, Nancy, just showing up, you know, is so key, because that's the frustrating thing that we went through for the last year is all these people didn't show up for the town meeting that are possibly yeses. And yet it's like this almost, if you see it every night, it's like maybe Dan Mills, God bless you, is probably the only one on, and maybe 1 or 2 people, you know, and that's the typical CPC meeting.
Totally get you.
So the letter stuff's great. It you know, that's fine, but it's really just showing up to vote. And
Yeah,
I think to that end, under a lot of pressure from my fellow members here that, we had the votes to say just no and kill this thing. We did, and we could have. And I was, as chair, I made sure we got to a vote. We got to the June one, if you remember.
Yep.
And that got all whacked out.
Twice.
And then we had promised we're gonna bring it back in October, and I made sure, because I do want the town to vote. And it's unfortunate that, for the people that are yeses that are, say, online here or whatever, yourself perhaps, that no one showed up in October because they had that many bites at the apple and everyone's screaming, you want to show up or not. And then, as
I was there.
Jim points out, it's a very small turnout really effectively, but that's our opportunity to vote. And my thing was, I didn't want it to just be decided by 5 people here, 5 volunteers in the town, the fate of the town. And typically, to be honest too, and I've read a lot of other towns that are going through this, the planning board, we're getting into the financial side of the town, and it's really not the planning board's purview. And, so it's really the select board's purview when it starts getting into this stuff. And I think they are taking a more active role in this process, as you can see even last night by being in this new declaration, by being given the ability to submit the action plan, that manner of having the TA do that, and so that was done. So I'm a little all over the place, but my point is just, yes, I think the voters should decide which way they want to go with this. It shouldn't be us. So I really do think that whether this board agrees with this or not, I'd like it to get to the town meeting in June so people get to vote on it. I know that's not popular with some of my members up here, but I'm not trying to be popular with just 4 other people. I'm trying to be popular with the rest of the town to let them know that you all have a vote. And if you don't show up, you can't yell at us. But if you show up and exercise your vote, that's what it's all about.
Thank you. We'll make sure that happens.
Yes. Are you trying to take over the rest of the?
No, just want to follow up with something Jeff said. I don't think we're giving the Attorney General enough credit. I don't think she'll sue 31 towns. I think she'll pick a couple of towns and sue them, which means you could get, I guess, the other 31 towns to agree to give us money. But the truth is, I think it's going to cost us. It cost Milton $1 million to fight it, and they lost, and they never questioned the law. So I don't think she's a not intelligent woman. I think she's a very intelligent woman, and I think that's how she'll do it. And so I think it will cost us big time. Sudo said last night, we're not going to get sued. I don't know what he got his crystal ball, but I don't know what's guaranteed.
Example, we pick somebody, set an example.
And I'll stop.
Thanks, Jim. And right now I'll switch it to people. Do we have hands up, Danielle?
I know we have a couple.
Or just letting you know now, so you can put a hand up if you're out there in Zoom world.
Oh, I do see a hand up.
Just raise your hand and then Danielle will kind of go in order.
I see Mr. Gannon's hand up.
Hi, yes, thank you.
His phone.
I've never met you.
What was that? Sorry?
Hi.
It's your cousin here. Just kidding.
Oh, is there another Gannon in there?
There is, sorry.
Okay, sorry, I was cutting in and out a little bit. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Just give your address and your name.
Yep. Yeah, Jeff Gannon, 3 Linwood Avenue. I appreciate you, Mr. Chair, being open to at least bringing it to a town meeting. The one thing I'd say about the board is, everyone appreciates the time you put in, knows it's a tough job. And I think, I feel like I hear, we're getting new information every day and we don't know enough about it. But for me, there's a ton of information out there. The biggest thing being that Milton lost their lawsuit and we are now prone to getting sued. And as I've said in a few meetings, I talked to Danielle. I think our approach here will not have a huge impact on North Reading negatively. It may have a positive impact. One thing I believe, and I'd be curious to see what people think now on the town financial board, the finance committee or whatever it might be called. what they would vote, because I think at the town meeting, they may have been unanimous to, or at least they were a majority to vote yes to accept the new zoning. So now I'm curious like what that is and if that might sway public opinion. And that kind of brings me around to the point I was going to make, which is, I think the CPC should feel comfortable making a recommendation and not just saying it's up to the townspeople. As you said, you're getting a lot of information. You're at every meeting. Not everyone is. So I would, I know some people will have different opinion than I do on it, but I think putting it out there and doing your best as a board for the interests of the town is important. And the same thing for the select board too. So again, I've said it, I think the plan that we've come up with is a really good approach. I think the state needs more housing to help with the cost. And this is, one thing they're trying to do to help that. And us playing our part isn't such a bad thing, especially when it has minimal impact. I think it was said the last time around, if the state comes in and they get to rewrite our zoning, we're probably not going to like it very much. So again, I would, anyone listening, I would ask to sort of rethink if you previously voted no, and if you are supporting, to get the word out and, write to this board and the other boards and try and get the latest education out there. So thank you. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Jeff. And I agree, and I think the CPC does have an opinion and does formulate its opinion from what they read, see, hear from people, and leading up to not only June and then October and really up to the end of the year, the overwhelming sentiment of people that I heard from, and they're on all sides of the political aisle, was no. And so so that's why you got a CPC majority, not all, Warren, fairness, that rendered that decision. And so that again, we are a reflection of the town, the citizens of the town, and what we hear. And I have to just say, I'm being straight up honest with you. That's what I was hearing from you. Did I hear a few, I'm kind of nervous about the grants? Absolutely. But overall, that's the feedback I got in the town. And I'm just trying to project what I was hearing at the time. Will that change right now? Definitely, perhaps. And so we need to keep our ears open and eyes open and listen to people. But I'm just letting you know, like I'm being straight up, that's how it was all through the fall. So I was just, I think, projecting what I was getting from people I talked to.
The 2 words, educate.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that goes back to your original points about finding out more about the law and where they have
Need to educate
problems with it. But there is just some glaring things that you could look at all the law you want that a number of people brought up tonight and then last night is just, if you don't comply with the law, there are going to be consequences. And so that has nothing to do with parsing the words and all this stuff. It is a law. And we thought, again, the way it was written is, and I use the speeding ticket thing all the time, but if you speed, here's the ticket, and the ticket was the 4 grants. They did up it and all that, but so a lot of people went into October thinking these 4 grants, you know what?
We don't need them.
Well, it's not we don't need them. I'm willing to keep the state out of my pocket and forego these grants. I think people made that type of financial decision, political financial decision. So that's where a lot of people are going by. The SJC decision, though, specifically kind of spoke to that and said, no, they can throw those in and they can throw a lot more in, the Attorney General. So that changes things because it was, it's where else are you going to go other than the SJC? It's just, you're going to go to the Supreme Court. I don't think it's going to get there. So
That'll be expensive too.
Yeah. So, and I don't mean us go there. I mean, if somebody wants to go there, but that part, we're going to be subjected to fines, and we are going to probably lose grants once we go out of compliance. I just want to remind everyone, we're not out of compliance. We even just had the SB authorizing our TA to sign off on a grant an ADA grant that we received for $33,000, I think it was. Was it?
55.
55, sorry.
55,000.
30, but anyways. Yeah,
Question.
Yeah.
In terms of, looking ahead to the next few months and also the feedback that the various board members have gotten. I mean, I know each of you have mentioned having talked to a lot of people in the town and hearing opinions. And because we didn't get a ton of people at our meetings, I did not get a strong sense of this. So I'm curious, do you have a sense of whether from talking to those people, the no was about we shouldn't comply, or whether the no is about the inclusion of Martin's Landing? I'm just trying to parse that out, whether.
depends who you talk to, and I think that the others would say the same thing. If you talk to Martin's Landing people, it's absolutely Martin's Landing. If you talk to a broader section of people, nowhere near Martin's Landing, it was all about the state overreach. But again, that's state overreach, understanding that Milton is challenging it. And I want to see what happens. There's a lot of people in that group,
Yeah.
Or,
They hung their hats on it.
yeah, it's not even hung your hat, like just laying back going, I want to see what happens, right over here. And that's a natural human trait, I think. And so either you accept what the SJC came back with on January 8th or you don't. But that's an important change in the whole equation. That and a lot of people use that, they hung a hat on that, is wait till I want to see. Well, it happened. So now it's January 8th. So now where do you stand? And I do think it's fair to ask that question to everybody in town. The same people from the town meeting, people who didn't go, does that change anything? Perhaps it doesn't,
Dave, I think that clearer definition of the law, in other words, the law is not a suggestion, it's a law. Because I think a lot of them thought, well, if we don't vote for it, we don't have to do it, right? But that's not the case. So I think the understanding of what a no vote does and the fact that it's a law, you can't disclaim it. I mean, I don't know how many people didn't realize that. Some of the people I talked to said that I talked to that were no's, and I talked to them specifically because they were no's, said, well, if we just don't vote for it, well, we don't have to do it, right? We'll just say no.
I think there's a lot of towns doing that right now.
Yeah, so we just let it go and we just won't vote for it. And then we don't have to do any of those things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a law. It's not.
Yeah.
5 years speed limits. It's like going on the highway and decide how fast you want to go and going faster or see if you go slower. Whichever one you do, you'll be in trouble for it because it's a law. So understanding the words, it's a law, isn't it?
You want 30 seconds?
I'm gonna make you wait if that's okay, Jim, and only because I want to be fair to everybody that was on. So is there another hand up? And if there wasn't, you can, but you see anybody?
I'm not seeing a hand up, but if anyone would like to put your hand up.
Yeah, anybody online? After I just laughed away for.
I don't see.
See what happens?
Maybe you answered all the questions.
I don't know. I don't really want that.
Needs 30 seconds.
All right, so I don't see anybody, but Danielle, we keep looking for a hand raised and we'll go back to Mr. Gannon.
So on January 2nd, there were 31 communities that were not, that were quote, 31. That number's actually come down.
So I think that was voted no, though.
That's not the definition of
Yeah,
non-compliant.
I know, that's where you get into the weird, I'm just pointing out this great thing online, it's not crystal clear where people are, and leading up to October, it was even more difficult because people were technically compliant because they had their action plan and they met the steps. So it looked like everyone's in compliant, but the picture was just evolving at that point. And so from what I understand is there's 31 no votes, and then there's a grouping of towns that just haven't even responded. So I don't know the exact number. I'm not going to be the one that tells anybody what that is with any certainty, but it's a good sized group of people. If you look at the towns and the population, it's not a small number.
It is not zero, that's true.
Right, yeah. Trying to be fair on both sides there. If it was 2 towns, you'd have a target on your back,
I lied. When Red Jones was sitting there, he said, I think Linfield found a zone that actually crosses over Route 1. gotta believe, and I'll wait to hear what Danielle says at some point in the future. I've got to believe there's 5 acres somewhere that a developer may or may not want. I think then it's gonna fall on whether or not we find a developer that wants to make it a 55 and older community or not. Personally, I'm 69, I'd love to have a community to go to, but it's awesome. I promise.
You got Park Street coming soon. Project next to the police station. Go ahead.
Possibly swing.
What's up?
What was that?
So town-owned land is not eligible to be owned. It has to be privately owned. So what we would do if we are interested in finding an alternative to the proposal that includes Martha's Landing is we would have to look at all of the other properties in town that are privately owned that may be potentially suitable.
Are we gonna reach out to, let's say, the owner of Kitty's and say, you want to give up your land and make it, and we can?
We don't need to, I mean, you can rezone a property and it's up to the owner what they do with that property. It's not a giving up, it's.
You mean like some of the apartment places that are bid to 20?
I mean, it's so this is a change in the zoning, so what it does is it adds options to owners. So for example, there are a handful of properties on Route 28 that also have a multifamily housing overlay on them. Nobody has yet chosen to use that and develop it. But it's an option, and so we could rezone it. We don't even have to notify a property owner if town owns their property. Not that we wouldn't, but it's not, because it's an additional option that's given to the property owner. It's not a taking away. So you could rezone every property on Main Street, and then it's up to each individual owner whether they choose to use the zoning.
Walmart?
Anything, literally anything that's not town-owned land or all wetland flood zone.
Big lots, yeah. Motion to take up.
So let's agree, because I don't think we're gonna solve it tonight, but there's definitely that's on the table and that we should look at. Okay.
I'm making a list, so I mean.
You're checking it twice.
Well, I'll probably go down and sit down and go over the list. See how much of this we can.
All right, so I'm gonna just ask one more time for online. Thanks everybody too online for attending the meeting. Pretty good outfit. Oh.
You're not waving anything.
Oh, sorry, we do have a hand? We do? Oh, you're just waving, sorry, I thought you said there's a hand up.
No, I'm just waving goodbye.
Sure, go ahead.
When you folks submitted your original plan, did you interact with this the livable communities group, or I mean, how was that submitted?
I can answer that. So early on, when the state first rolled this out, they had a series of trainings, meetings, webinars, and I and other planners in the area attended these. The state put out instructions. We were given the action plan, and the action plan was shared, the planning commission and the select board. And we submitted the action plan. The action plan was then approved by the state. And then we were given an opportunity to do like a test review to see if it could, would potentially be accepted with more detail given. We were given some feedback on that, but that was kind of the interaction that we had with the state over those couple of years.
And they didn't have any problem with the over 55?
They didn't, because they made it clear that zoning, it's only a rezoning, and so zoning's only function is to say what you can and can't, what private owners can and can't do. So they had no concerns about it. They would have liked us to choose an area that actually had more potential to develop new housing. So they kind of were, they said, and we see what you're doing here. You're targeting an area that's already built. So we know this is not really going to result in any new housing. However, we will accept it because it meets the letter of.
In our defense, there are a couple of, I think Wilmington did the same thing. There's a couple other towns that had the places already all built. They did exactly the same thing. The ones that could fit stuff into that law and make it work did it.
Now, I can say it was mixed community.
I just really specifically asked the state during the trainings and even calls as we were, calling to seek help and guidance. I did specifically ask, is it an issue that we have age restricted? And they said, no, this is what you're supposed to do with these properties, whatever zone you're looking at. You imagine them completely, vacant, as though they've been totally redeveloped from step one. This is what would happen in the future if you were to. So that was how we built that plan. And that's how we would, if we look to a different area, if we do the same, it could be a commercial site that's already built, it could be a residential site that's already built, it's vacant, it just.
Do you have any, that's my question, do you have any doubt if they do send in, we become a situation where, there's an overseer that comes in, that they're going to ignore Marks's Landing?
I don't know what they might do. If I were the state, I would probably pick a central area of Main Street. I think that's usually been their target. They would rather see residential in areas where residential has not previously been allowed, because in their mind, that's where the capacity for developing homes.
But in fairness, though, the Martin's Landing or that part of North Reading is the closest to MBTA, Wilmington, and that's the whole law is about that, trying to be within half a mile of some sort of rapid transit. So that's the spirit of it, try to get it close so it's walkable or close. And so if you pull away further and further, it's not what the law
That
intended.
doesn't meet the intent of the law.
It wasn't the intent of the law, but would it comply? I'm sure, absolutely, right? But it's just, the intent is to try to get the ones closer to the T.
So that's why I said that while Martin's Landing is, it fits, it's the best for the town, it fits the best. If we can make any of the problems go away, all of the problems go away, that's the reason that it's there, because as you said, it meets basically it's the closest thing to meet the criteria that they wanted, so.
Yeah, I think also the view in putting together that action plan was, well, we already rezoned this property, we already built it. We should just take credit for what we already did.
Yeah, I think
that's what Wakefield's trying to do. Wakefield's a no. But yet, if anyone's driving by Wakefield, which all of us are doing, there's housing going up everywhere. So I think they're looking to maybe do the same thing. It's just after the fact.
I think
they're
one of the
late
things,
to the game.
People of Wakefield.
Well, hey, yeah, that's what I meant. I meant,
People of Wakefield.
yeah, exactly. I think that's fair to say that from what I've read. I'm just saying that that's why they also voted no. They've got all this going on because it started even before the whole MBTA thing.
I think one of the key
It's
points
correct.
to make,
And Wakefield hates it, but only because the committee that came up against it, they made it quite clear. You cut it back to the 750, we'll be first in line to vote for it. But that isn't what you did. You made it 2,100 or something like that.
Yeah, meaning the state.
And why they hate it.
Yeah, they really put the screws to
So
Wakefield
it's-
as far as, the numbers.
The overreach.
the thing about North Reading is these two parcels that we're talking about, we already zoned them multi-form. The changes that would be brought by this are so minimal because it's already got that zoning there, that zoning already exists on those properties. So, I mean, basically the votes that we have to take are, to adopt that, which doesn't change the basic zoning very much from what it already is, and then to put it into our bylaw, to give it a name, to give it a location and a place. So, I mean, really,
I have a question for the rest of the committee. Does that make sense? Jeff, does that make sense to you?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Picking another 5 acres and putting in apartments that people are gonna. And you don't need to answer that question. You don't know what it is.
There's so much so in fairness, we've kicked around so many different thoughts, different ideas, different ways to work with this mess that we have. And and even in conversation with others, that has come up, other issues have come up, and what if we do this and that and everything? And everybody has an idea. And we try to just reflect on what we have in front of us, what we have to deal with, and how we deal with it. My question is, and I'm glad you brought that point up. I wrote something down a few minutes ago. At this point, we have submitted a plan that we already have, and the action plan is identical. If the plan changes, we have to go through the process all over again. Well, how does that work then?
So the action plan's not binding. It's It's a description, it's a summary of what we believe we will be doing.
So, okay, so my point was, and if that's the case, then what we need to do also is go through the same thing. We went through Martin's Landing in Edgewood. We sent out notifications to all the people who live there, how it would affect the letter that I think we drafted collectively. We sent it out. They responded. And it can get complicated because once you start moving different pieces of that puzzle around, it's going to affect different parts of the town, and then other parts of the town will go, what? Whoa, not my backyard. And I get it, because the uncertainties and the complexities that this can bring into certain neighborhoods. So the answer to your question is, that's an exhausting thought from our standpoint, because there's going to be a lot more involved in making a shift. It's not that easy. It really,
I'll go back to something she said a while ago. Sorry, I said a while ago. You don't need to tell Walmart that you zoned it. You don't.
Yeah, but it's a courtesy, I think,
Absolutely.
with residents, but I think we're all in agreement
I
on
don't care.
that. Yeah.
But you don't. You should, obviously, there's there.
How about Elm Street? The acres are out there. Elm Street,
right across.
No,
how big of a parcel is that?
You mean you mean 20 Elm Street, 40 feet?
Yeah,
I think that's gonna be coming back soon.
But can,
yeah. How about
it's-
if we put it in?
What about
Basically,
Bellavano?
that's what he wants to do anyway. That's the government.
So-
It's just a neighborhood necessarily.
So that's why we have these discussions, because there's gonna be, it's gonna be, you're gonna beat it to death again. And if we start shuffling everything around, we may not have enough time to get this to the meeting. We may not, depending on the procedure and what we have to do and all the notifications and how many hearings do we have to have. And here we go again. We have to rev the machine up again and have, this is a good night. We got a great audience tonight. We got 4 people. This is a busy.
What's your alternative?
So this is a busy night. So our alternative, my alternative is, I really think that we've done what we can do. We've done everything that the select board has asked. We've done everything that we're obligated to do. We've gone above and beyond, really. I believe I've studied, I know you guys have all put a lot of work into this thing, a lot of work. I've talked to a lot of people, a lot. And the alternative, I look at this as, and again, I'm very strongly opinionated on what I've seen and how the town has responded. And Jim, to your point, if it was 180 people that they made a quorum, they needed 150. If 180 had made that decision, that's what happens at town meetings. We got 4 tonight. And I think I made this statement before because we had someone else kind of questioning the same thing. And at one point, I said, well, nobody ever shows up to these meetings. Nobody ever gives us any input. Can the 5 members make the decision? We were elected to do that, right? So if no one comes and there's no input, and we do, Danielle put multiple ads in the paper, we did stuff on the website. So we flushed out as much as we could. We did what we could.
no one was watching. No one was watching.
But you know what though? That we did what we could. So when I'm sorry, Jim, when the town responded in the way that they responded, I'm honoring that. Period. So
Martin's Landing responded.
no. The town responded, Jim.
You make up 35% of the room.
Jim,
They did.
the town responded. It went into, it was publicly notified. Mr. Chair, if you could.
I'm sorry.
No, and
I'm sorry.
I wanted this again, point of order is that is the vote of the town meeting. And so you can parse what.
You are correct.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to accept that premise because it affects any decision, budget, whatever, every town meeting. If we start getting into well, it was all these people or that people, it was who showed up and the majority who won. Go ahead, Nancy, sorry.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
raising my hand
Yeah.
because I thought you were supposed to.
Yeah, right.
So-
We're pretty loose here. We're not like the select board. Mr. Chairman Vincenzo Studo is on. He knows, he's probably his hair's falling out watching me do this.
I'm still trying to.
Yeah, Nick says me too. We're very loose here. What?
I'm trying not to go over all that, I'm trying to move forward here.
Yeah, well, we are.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Nancy, though.
So, okay, so you've done the work, gonna stick with your plan. You're not gonna change it. That's understandable, because it's a lot of work. So if we don't do that, the only alternative is for me to rent a bus and get 180 people in it and bring it to the town meeting.
You know, 180 people, that's cool.
I,
you know,
they all can probably wait
Wouldn't
right
be the
now.
first time,
Huh?
wouldn't be the
So-
first time.
So Nancy, in all fairness, right?
Yeah.
It is exactly that. It's a democracy. And if everyone is paying attention, that's better for the town. Because you get a nice, well-rounded feel. But if 90% of the town is not interested, you know, how many people I ask, you know, you should really go to the town meeting, you should be involved. And you know what? So I don't know.
We really have the 4th of July, but we should really come and try to help. Oh, I can't. Secure it all the time.
Yeah.
But I guess my other point is that if we, and the woman who spoke last night, if we really want to have a harmonious town, and we want this to be something that is palatable to everybody, it might be worth making that change, because it would be nice to not have that defensive position and to have something that maybe could be welcoming the town. Because I don't know about you, at some point, I want to give up my house and I don't want all that property. I'd love to stay in town. There's really not that many places to live. If you want to be, you know, on your own, I mean, there's a few places, but to have other alternatives, it'd be nice. So maybe doing a little bit of work would bring more harmony to the town.
Sorry.
We submitted either 240 or 250 signatures to the town clerk before the election there in opposition to this. Thank you for voting.
Yeah.
So I need 250 minutes.
Yes. All right, so if no one else is on. Oh, there's a hand, okay. Just raise your hand, just say your name, your address. Oh,
Hi, Dan Mills, 5 Green Meadow Drive. Good evening, members of the board. So I understand that you, with all due respect, said that you did everything you can do to get, the information out to the public. Was there ever a venue that the town planner made a presentation with more than 4 people that explained what an overlay district actually is, that it isn't eminent domain, that it's not a state property, that, the state's not taking the property? Was there ever a presentation with, again, more than 4 people that was the town planner was able to make those statements?
So Dan, all I can say is, at least when the MBTA thing first came up, the law was passed or signed into law by Charlie Baker in January 21. I think Danielle's probably at every town meeting gave an update of where we're at in the process once you started it. So I don't know that number, but I would assume so. Did you talk about eminent domain? I don't know, but I mean, as far as it relates to the MBTA,
We haven't talked about it.
it was our meeting, but also the town meeting, which was a larger than 4 people audience, is all I'm saying.
So I guess what I'm really saying is that Danielle wasn't given the benefit of presenting to the town meeting where the action was taken. And I think there was a lot of misinformation.
Dan, I reject that 100%, and I'll tell you why. It was brought up at the June meeting, and we were told we got to move this thing into October. Everyone was ready to vote on it. Daniel gave a presentation at that meeting, and then now it's going to go to October. How many more times does the town have to see the same presentation That's a call that I made, and I got supported by a lot of people on it. A couple of people, including yourself, that were sitting behind that microphone on your different tables, who felt differently. That night, I'm sorry you're upset, but I sat through 2.5 years of that same presentation. It wasn't going to change. It's the same exact parcel. The law hadn't changed. Nothing would have changed. So it was my opinion that I don't need to waste 15 minutes of everybody's life here. People who showed up, they were mad as hell that they got pushed off from June. They were ready to vote in June, and it got pushed off to October. So in each time, Dan, I promised to bring it to the people to vote. And each time I did that. So I wasn't going to do the kangaroo court thing again in October. And I made that decision. And I had the right to do so.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes. I'm sorry. I thought I heard the town administrator say last night, we can take more than one proposal to the town meeting. Did he not say that?
I don't remember if you did or not, but it's.
All I know is that the warrant articles as written cannot come back up for 2 years when they're voted down unless we give a favorable recommendation. So that's one avenue. There are possibilities, and I think that's something that the TA and Danielle can explore, that there's other ways that the select board either does it or whatever. That's up to them to do. But we represent CPC. They have the right to look at other ways that the select board could do it. Or the way it's worded, for instance, Jim, and it's changed or something that allows you to vote on it again without a recommendation. I'm not sure.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think we could give the town folks, if you will, voters, an option. Give them two options. Vote for one or the other, or
That's a possibility, different parcels. It's still the same, and this is the part I don't know. This is the part I don't know if Danielle could help me with, is if it's the same, essentially you're trying to do the same thing. If it changes the parcels, does that change it? Yeah, we think that should. Yeah, so it's a different proposal
If we
then.
want to have more than one proposal, or if we want to have a different proposal from what has been proposed before, we would just write a warrant article that reflects that.
Yeah,
It
so
would
then that would be
different properties.
different, yeah.
Yeah, and the CPC would have, no matter who submits the article, if it's on the warrant, the CPC holds a hearing, because they have to do that for every zoning hearing. They can recommend against it, they can recommend for it, they can make no recommendation.
Right.
If it's a repeat article, as you said, I mean, my understanding is that without a positive recommendation for the CPC, from the CPC, town meeting doesn't have the opportunity to vote. I think that there was some question about whether that's 100% accurate. That's always been my understanding, and that's, I think, how we were advised throughout this. So I would anticipate if the CPC does not want to support the same proposal and does not give it a positive recommendation, it's not going to be voted on by town meeting. I think that if we are interested, if you want to, direct me to look at some alternatives, I'm more than happy to do that. If you've decided that compliance is not something we want to pursue, you just have to let me know, and I will work on it any angle you want, but we have lots of choices. It's up to what you want to do.
So, there was a question asked earlier, that reflected, was it the, like what was driving people? I don't know, I don't know what was driving them in a different direction to say no. And I think it was like, it was the principle of like kind of what was going on. Like the town didn't want to give the zoning like away, so to speak. You know what I mean? They wanted to, the townspeople did not, how can I word this? It's like, I think people were afraid of that overreach, really. I think that's what it was, in the uncertainty of that. I think that's what drove most people, if you want to know. I really do. I think that the overreach part of it and the mystery, and we were finding and discovering new things every time we met Warren. We done, well, this is different, that changed. So it was very, very hard to sift through it all. So not only was there that uncertainty here, but amongst the people, it was just, there was a lot of confusion and a lot of, even the way, and even like, you know, I have, it's crazy, and I almost brought it up last night, and I really wanted to bring it up tonight because tonight is our format, and I wanted to go over some of the complaint for declaratory relief that was filed just a few days ago in the emergency declaration. In the emergency declaration, if the emergency declaration never existed, if it was not a claim like this, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now.
Right, the state would be working on the EO agency would be working on the guidelines, following the Procedures Act, which they were told to do by the
Right,
SJC.
so
I do accept that premise, but at the same rate, just to be counter that, the other is so even if the SJC does give some relief and slaps them again and say, guys, you can't just resubmit the same guidelines we just told you were out of order. You know, and make it an emergency. And there's a very real possibility that you could get that. Let's just say that happens. It's still just, it's not going to change anything. It's just going to say, go back and do this the right way with meetings and open hearings and all that stuff. And we'll get what we're looking at right now just a little further down. So I agree with you. This rush that we're being told is definitely another punishment by the state.
Which gives us more time to find something that is suitable. My first question tonight was, is this committee going to find something, a solution that is acceptable to folks at Martin's Landing, other people as well, or not? And I think
I'm open to, again, we're the CPC, not the CCC. So we're not the Community Compliance Commission, and we're planners. And that's why I got on this. That's why I got on this board. If I could just let you know, as a volunteer and a fellow Duane Drive resident, the last year has been hell. It's not, I'm an architect. I like to just do plans and talk about development and stuff. It's been really awful. It's divided the town. There's mean stuff said about me. I'm not even on Facebook, so I could even care less. But there's mean stuff said about both sides, and the back and forth is just really the vitriol is just terrible. And imagine being us, you know, we just volunteered to do this, and we're now the subjects of all this attention. Like, I didn't want to be that. Now, you join the select board, you get ready for the spears, because everybody knows that's a tough board to be on. But for CPC, it's historically, look at this long-term member here. It's not historically a tough board to be on, right?
If you're gonna be on any board, you're gonna have a thick skin, because.
Yeah, but typically, Mark, you're not going through this kind of, this is the first law since 1969. It's been 50 years since the Massachusetts enacted any kind of law like this.
This is nothing.
Yeah, but it's been 50 years. The last law that had anything to do with changing our zoning was in 69.
So you picked a bad time.
Yeah, exactly. I picked a bad time to join a board. Thank you, Nick. You just nailed it.
Yeah.
But and then bad time to be a chair. But honestly, it's not what we want. But to answer your question is, yeah, I want to work. That's like why I joined the board, like to come up with solutions and, you know, and plan. You know, that's the whole point. I don't want to just be, you know, Mr. Compliance. I want to find something that's
personally
works.
I think you'd be heroes in this town if a solution was developed that made everyone smile.
You can never make everyone smile.
Mostly.
That is true.
I don't think you're gonna satisfy.
You know, you're right, and you can't. You can't. I agree.
Yeah, well. So the farm that used to be behind us
Yes.
is now a six acre mansion. I lied, by the way, it's 10,000 square feet. 5 bedrooms, 5 baths. Mr. Murphy, you can ask him because they're in his backyard. I
remember the farm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I watched him build it for 2 years. Listen to the build it for 2 years. What I think could happen, I think Danielle's correct. If the state gets involved, they'll find someplace else, and then they will build apartment complexes, and families with children will come into those, and our costs will go up, which, by the way, I'm okay with that. But it's a fact. That's what's, in my opinion, I think that's what's gonna happen. I think finding a space that no one wants to develop just makes so much sense.
Or for finding a space that's already developed, which is what we did. That's why I keep saying that.
As I called it on the
Best for
first
the
meeting
town,
of that,
because
it's a no-brainer.
No changes. You know, I mean,
No one was watching. I, obviously it matters now, so
Yeah.
and
All right,
last
so
thing I want to do is,
I don't want to shut down everything because I think we're gonna have our next meeting, we'll do the same, it'll be on the agenda. I think Danielle will continue the conversation. I think we will in earnest try to answer some of these questions that we brought up. So whether it be try to identify other potential parcels, talk about the law, some of the questions. Again, also try to get to the heart a little bit more with the Martin's Landing folks. So I look forward to talking to those folks in that property, because I do still think it's such a layup, the proposal that Danielle came up with, that if we can find, what do we have to do? Like, it could be these amendments, and the limit on number of units or these age things. If there's amendments that we could make to, to the original warrant articles, then maybe that would be what helps. I don't know what it is, so we need help in that area, but I think those are the three areas that we're going to focus on, and maybe we can give everybody a report of where we're at in 2 weeks.
you have to wonder, if I may, you have to wonder, the ADU bylaw came in. Nobody said anything about it. I mean, and that was bam, no stories. You're gonna do it, done.
Yeah, it was just slightly different. I think what they threw up a lot of people here is you had the ability to go vote to change your zoning. Now, did we not just do that at the special town meeting? But what we did is to kind of counter it, the law, is to actually curtail it a little bit so it's not completely out of control.
But completely with the understanding that the Attorney General could kick all that right out.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was something that
They're different though.
over
That's
the
all.
years, we've done a number of zoning changes over the
Yeah,
years.
but there's been 2 laws in the last 3 years, and then if in 50 years, they stayed out of everybody's here, let the local planning boards do their planning, and then 50 years. So again, for the people that, the yes votes that don't understand the no's, I understand that sentiment. It's like, why now? Why now are you're trying to take over planning?
It's the thing, housing is an issue all across the state.
I understand that, but
Even
affordable housing is, I know, it's how, right now, there's a housing shortage because the rates are so high, and that's because our government, not us, our government just printed money for 2 to 3 years after COVID. That's what caused this problem, that we have the spike rates and whatever. We have too much money supply, and that's why I have inflation. That's why no one will move, because we're all locked in at 4% mortgages or whatever, and no one wants to, sell their house. So that's the biggest shortage caused by
any of the
inflation.
politicians that are running for office, including Mayor of Boston, the number one thing they come up with, housing, that's your first priority, housing.
Right.
There's a hand up, I just noticed.
Sure, I was gonna end the meeting, but go right ahead.
Yeah, I will make it quick. Thank you. Jeff Gannon, 3 Linwood Ave again. I think, 2 things came up. One, what I think was Warren was getting at, and what I would urge the board to do is try and think of this objectively. Like, this is a law. It just got supported in court. And how can the North Reading CPC and town planner best address it, similar to the ADU? And I thought it was handled well at town meeting recently on, this is it. We think this is the best for the town. I think I would urge you to think that way objectively about what's the best for the town. And it's not going to make everyone happy. That is an excellent point. No matter what you do, some people are going to be mad about an overreach. Some people are going to be mad about an age-restricted community maybe being affected. Some people are going to be mad about the number of apartments. So if you find a different site, you're not getting what I think I heard was around 150 apartments max at Martin's Landing. You're probably getting hundreds and hundreds of apartments potentially in order to comply. So, I think it'd be great if, and that's what I was trying to say the first time I spoke was, not necessarily, your personal opinions about it, but like what's best for the town. And if you make a recommendation, I think people will respect you that you've done your job and they won't hold it against you. I'm sure some will, but I think for the most part, that would be really respectable. And then, on the housing thing, part of it is what you said, but there's also high material costs. There's the supply and demand, which in my opinion is the biggest issue in this part of the country, is we don't have the supply to really meet the demand, and therefore the prices remain high, along with the interest rates, the cost to borrow. There's tons of factors right now. So anything we can do to help, I think, is worth it. I'm in the same architecture and development field. My firm was crushed last year with all of these factors that I just mentioned. And I'm hoping we can come out of it, but something has to move. And I think we can also keep the town's best interest in mind while we do our part and comply with the law and not lose grants, not have to fight lawsuits. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, so to be continued, can we all agree? Go ahead.
Just
Danielle.
regarding our
Yeah.
next discussion about this,
Yeah.
I have some action items. I was going to be running the compliance model with Edgewood only to see where that leads us. I think I heard that you all would like for me to potentially look at some possible additional parcels if we do decide to go in that direction. Tell me if I'm misunderstanding. I just want to make sure
Yeah, high level, just like where are they, that would comply.
Okay, and then there were discussions about certain legal questions. I don't know if you wanted me to try to pursue additional answers from town council. I know we asked town council many, many times, many different ways, some of the questions that came up. And so I'm not sure that that was an action item for me or something that you were thinking of exploring, but I just want to make sure I know.
I think I'll discuss, because I think I have some of the documents from the handouts from that public meeting or the meeting that they had kitties. I can I think identify what I think are the ones I keep coming up with, and I can send that to you, Danielle, and you can distribute it, just for meeting rules and all that stuff. But yeah, and then we can just start that process, because if that's, I think KP's addressed them, but we could just grab those and out and say, all right, resolve the gaps in this stuff. It wouldn't be all their 20 something points,
Right. And then for the next meeting, so that's during the school vacation week. I'm away. Do we want to talk about a different date? How do we want to handle schedule? So February 18th would be, and the 17th is President's Day. There is let's see, there's February 25th. I don't know if that would be.
I wouldn't be able to do the 25th.
Oh, you're away, right? Okay.
The 18th.
I'm sorry.
I can do the 18th.
You could also make without me.
Actually.
April 11th. And then our next meeting after that is March 4th.
Into the 11th.
Okay.
I'm gonna be away.
Like Danielle, and that school vacation gonna be great. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm on too.
Yeah, I won't be back till the 6th.
March 6th. Okay, so you're out for the March 4th meeting. What about everybody else during the school vacation week? Did you said you might?
Yeah, I'm gone. I leave the 18th that morning.
Me too. Okay, so I don't feel as bad.
Yeah, and then we get back Monday.
Okay.
The cost of flights, obviously, kind of thing. Weird flight dates. Yeah, so I could do again the 25th. Others could, because I know I'm back on Monday, but you guys can't, right? Was it you did?
You said,
Was it you?
Yeah, I will be back for the 6th of March.
Okay.
I can do either one, 18th or
If you do
25th.
25th, should we still meet though? So even though Warren can't, just so we can give people an opportunity to. I mean, I think we should probably do that. But wait, hang on, that's
it was 25th of,
The 25th of February.
Fifth, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. We can check with Max too.
yeah, I think 25th of February would work.
You're back, right? Or are you back?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just gone for the week of.
that week, okay. Yeah, yeah, why don't we do that then?
Okay, so our next meeting.
And then Warren, hey, could you even call into it maybe, or, Zoom in?
We should do that once from your cruise.
Yeah, we don't want you to do that. I'm not asking you to do
There's so much fun.
I'm just saying if you wanted. No pressure.
I don't know if I can get a walk on the beach.
All right.
So we're doing a
So the 25th we will meet. Okay, so upcoming meetings are February 25th, March 4th. Unless we want to move, okay, so I will mention March 4th, we did have one public hearing come in, although it has not yet been advertised, and we could, if we wanted to do March 11th. I mean, do you want us to
Just
move the
bounce
dates?
it out a little bit.
I could make March 11th, but I won't make March 4th.
So you want to move the 4th to the 11th then?
I think it's up to you.
Yeah, want to do
I'll tell
that?
you what it is. It's a propane tank storage retail area for Walmart. So not like a giant
Yeah.
public hearing, a
Those
lot of
Yeah.
residential butters,
Blue
but
Rhino kind of thing?
yeah, Blue Rhino, exactly. That's who it is.
Yeah.
So if you would prefer that we schedule them for March 11th and have the meeting then instead of the 4th,
Do that.
it's up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't we do that?
Is that? Or did we already? I'm sorry, I should have asked
As
as well.
long as you didn't mail out.
I told them not to mail it yet because, oh.
So they just want to play games, I don't know.
Did it go out
Oh,
already?
okay, it's possible.
We try.
Oh, never mind, I'm sorry, I shouldn't even brought it up. No.
Yeah.
Ask, no, it's undoing too much.
Really, if you have, the only thing would be if you mailed them. That would be it's right, because
He might have made copies, he might have stuffed them, I just know, I feel bad giving someone a date and then going back on it. It's, I think we're better off leaving it.
Why don't you?
Do you want to just try tomorrow morning and if it, just let us know? All right, now it's either the 4th or the 11th, then we'll let you see what happens.
Sorry.
No worries. It's all right.
If he did, I don't wanna.
No, absolutely not.
Get it? All right. We'll close the meeting. Thank you, everybody online.